Ooh, do we have a lot of board games to talk about today? And since episode 1 of Revamped has launched, now we are at episode 10 of Revamped, and since then, nearly double the amount of people are listening in across Google, Apple, Spotify, all listening platforms. So thank you all for tuning in and get ready for a very exciting episode of Revamped. First off, and most importantly, how are you? How are you all doing? What games have you been playing? What have you been up to? What gear have you been upgrading? What techniques have you been working on for photography and videography? Let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. Couple things for me. I don't know if you've noticed, but this microphone stand has now returned because I returned the last boom arm that I had. Didn't like it. It was very finicky, janky, and it was just a hassle to have. So I'm still looking around for a very good solid boom arm. I think I have one in mind. It's pretty sturdy and solid. It's from Blue Compass, so I'm thinking about getting that one. It's a bit pricey, but I need something that is just sturdy and just is reliable, so I don't have to worry about it. So there's that in terms of equipment upgrades. I also just wrapped up Abomination. I am so excited to show you that cinematic showcase. It's different. Let me tell you now, it's very different from every other showcase that I've done, not only in tonality, but also in terms of story. There's a lot of it I couldn't film because I didn't want it to be corny. It would have been if I just did it on my own. So I kind of just put a bunch of clips together that I hope you enjoy. Actually, right after this episode gets launched, I'll be working on that ASAP. So working on that cinematic showcase and review. And I'm also working on this very special video. It's going to address not really a concern, but more so a technique that pretty much every single board game is going to need. Tune in for that. It's coming out very, very soon. And lastly, just chipping away still at the short film, tightening up every single knot, redoing a ton of things. Not too much progress is being made on that, but I do want to set a week aside to just focus specifically on that short film. Hopefully I'll get a chance soon. And the last thing I want to talk about before getting into all the Kickstarter news is pins have arrived, shirts have arrived, but I'm redoing about 2 of those shirts because I'm not happy with the quality just yet. I launched a Patron last week, and since then we have blown across the monetary goals by a mile, and we are 1 away, as of the time of this recording, 1 away from the very first stretch goal within a week of Patreon being launched. So that is so exciting. I'm so humbled and so happy, seriously, so happy and excited to know that there's so many people out there just willing to put their hard-earned effort to support me. So thank you all so much for just being supportive all the way around, Patreon or not. You guys have been amazing. So thank you. It means a lot to have all of you here. Okay, so let's start off with the September Kickstarter highlights. Now, if you don't see a particular month of Kickstarter games, that most likely means that either I didn't back any game that month or I wasn't interested in any particular game, because I am trying to be a little bit more conservative with the amount of games I have because A, shelf space, B, costs a lot to really fund games every single month, and C, they really have to stand out to me and be worth the amount of time and effort to be spending. Yeah, so if you don't see a specific Kickstarter month, most likely is because I didn't back any or wasn't too interested in any that particular month. So with that said, here I am with a list of about 7 or 8 games that have been bookmarked across Kickstarter. So for those that are watching this on YouTube, I am going to throw up my screen in here so you see exactly what I'm seeing. Now, on Kickstarter, first off, let's talk about the Seventh Citadel. Let me also premise this by saying I don't have anything planned for this Kickstarter highlights. We're just going to scroll through, chat, have some fun as we are looking at a bunch of different games. So I haven't watched any of the trailers. I'm just going to go straight into Seventh Citadel. Seventh Citadel currently has $1.1 million in funding. That is insane. Almost 15,000 backers as of the time of this recording. Holy flip. I'm pretty sure this is the same company as like the I forget what it's called, Seventh World, Seventh Continent, right? Sounds oddly familiar. Oh, there we go. Seventh Citadel is an all-new cooperative exploration and adventure game from the creators of the Seventh Continent. How fitting. Now, in this post-apocalyptic medieval fantasy world, you play as a slave gardener who escapes from the citadel of necro-druid Ninidazir, only to find yourself confronted by an even greater threat. Explore the collapsing lands freely by gradually unveiling the board using number, terrain, and event cards. Interact with your environment and converse with its inhabitants. As the scenarios unfold, your choices, for better or worse, will lead you inexplorably to the epic finale against the threat. Now, I'm not familiar with Seventh Continent at all, but I know there is a ton of rave about that game, and the last Kickstarter was huge. So I'm not surprised that the Seventh Citadel is trending as well. The only thing I did know about Seventh Continent was that it was very card based, and also it was all about survival. And I'm not totally sure, don't quote me on this, but I know like as you adventure through the game, if like you die or you pass out in the game, you have to start over or something. Not totally sure on that, but I know the mechanism overall was to survive. But what's new is that you get to customize your personal action deck, and you get to pick skills to make your character unique. I always loved that about the games. I love being able to customize your character. That's what always drew me to MMORPGs like WoW, Diablo. You also get to interact with many inhabitants of these lands thanks to a dynamic dialogue system. Now that's cool. That's very D&D-ish like. You also get to expand your influence on collapsing lands by updating the world map. Okay, and you also get to return to your citadel between scenarios. Here you get to build a city that will signal the renewal of this desolate world. Okay, so first off, let me say this. Thank you to the creators of the Seventh Citadel for going straight into what the game is about and not showing us 5,000 components about what it is. So that's always a plus. I did talk about that in that episode over there. Now here are some key features of the game. You can play solo or co-op for up to 4 players. It takes 30 seconds to set up the game and 30 seconds to save it. That, especially after playing Abomination, sounds very enticing. 1,000 minutes, they claim, of thrilling adventure per threat. Per threat. Wow, how many threats are there? Relive the sensation of the adventure books when you are the hero. There are no die rolls. The more energy you spend, the more you increase your chances of success, but the faster you burn out. So it looks like you have to balance out stamina here. It's not really heavily reliant on any kind of luck, so to say. For me, I don't mind dice at all. I know people are very picky about, whether or not it's like a luck-based game, but there's a fun and surprise in dice that I really like. But for sure, if it's too luck controlled, then yeah, it's a big turn off for the game. And now we move on to gameplay. Do you see how satisfying it is to talk about a game when they go straight into what the game is about and then gameplay? Why is every campaign page not like this? Okay, in the Seventh Citadel, you face a threat which will inevitably come down to you. Each threat comes in the form of a booklet with several scenarios that follow one another until the final scenario where you either win the game or succumb to the threat. Unlike most board games, you will experience an adventure over time. But rest assured, a simple save system allows you to pause your game at any time to resume it later. So my first question that comes up is, I don't think this is categorized as a legacy game, but it has very similar elements to it in that your game is changing as you play, and you can't exactly start from scratch, I think. So in that sense, I wasn't a big fan of legacy games because just personal preference. I would rather play a game that you can play over and over again, but then attack the strategy from different perspectives and different characters or from different ways of using your resources within the game. Okay, next you start the game by choosing one of the available characters. Every character has an optional quest and a personal action deck. So I think that's cool how you get to customize your own characters and you get to start off with your own basic adventure and your character kind of develops over time. I think it's fun in that aspect, but for me, I always like board games where you can kind of restart everything from the beginning with each round that you play. So the fact that this game kind of continues with every single time is just not our group's personal preference. We're very competitive, so we don't really like to stay in the same game over and over again, or maybe we just haven't experienced the right game. This could be it, I don't know. So this game, you start off with a mini and you can go in certain directions and kind of explore new territories as new tiles will flip up. It's full of random events and there are a ton of cards, of course. So overall, I think the feel and the artwork, everything about Seventh Citadel feels very similar to Seventh Continent. It's not a bad thing. It's just that I didn't back Seventh Continent for a reason. And that was mostly because it's a game full of cards. Maybe I haven't met the right game yet, but I'm usually not fully into like the whole card board game-ish thing. There are very, very few board games that I have that are very card driven. So for example, I have Seven Wonders and I have Ashes Rise of the Phoenixborn. Both played very heavily, but also have Marvel Champions unplayed so far. But those are the only 3 card heavy games that I have out of the maybe 100 games that I have in my collection. There's just something about having a physical board and mini components and resources and meeples and miniatures, all that combined together that really brings me to the table. But seeing just cards alone, not really my thing, but that could change here. So probably a really good reason why this campaign has over 14,000 people already. So I am definitely gonna look into this one a little more. Maybe I don't want to miss out as much as I did with Seventh Continent. But overall, it looks interesting. And if it is one card game that I would dive into, it would probably be this one. But with that said, how do you feel about Seventh Citadel? Is this one game that you are not going to miss out on? Let me know your comments down below, and maybe you might change your mind. Or maybe don't change your mind, because I don't know if I want Seventh Citadel to take up the one slot for this month. Moving on to game number 2, which is from Panasaurus Games, and that is Dinosaur World. And also Dinosaur Rar and Right. Okay, so right away, I love the whole Jurassic Park feel of this game. I also like how it kind of mimics like Dinosaur World, Jurassic World. The components look very, very vibrant straight off the bat. 2 to 4 players. Plays for between 1 to 2 hours, which is typical. And here is the thematical setting for Dino World. Introducing Dinosaur World. The chaotic throngs of amusement park adrenaline junkies and crafty hoodlums have long been silent. The dream of billion-dollar dinosaur theme parks came crashing to a halt after waves of class action lawsuits pushed the likes of Lewis, Leviathan, and Pandagen into bankruptcy and permanent closures. As the Technicolor dreams of the 90s crested into a new decade, so too did our fair dinosaur theme parks. That's because dinosaur theme parks aren't meant to happen. We cannot live concurrently with dinosaurs, which is why they are extinct. Or can we? And now, of course, Dinosaur World has reopened with stunning new islands. But please make sure to keep your promise to keep facilities at bay. You know what happened to the last owners. We wouldn't want that to happen to a bright mind like yourself. Now, inside the box, they include 3 central boards, a score track, 4 research boards, 4 player boards, a ton of tiles, screen printed, I think, dino meeples, typical worker meeples, some cubes, dice, and we also have some Kickstarter exclusives. Do we know what we're doing on our turn yet? Not yet. We have no idea what we're doing on our turn. Let's see, we have 54 metal coins, an embroidered bag, and here we go, how to play. So each round, it looks like you're going to draft a group of workers from the worker database for a full season. Cool. And then you're going to build your park with some special attractions and special buildings. Okay. Okay. And then you're going to make dinosaurs. Use your workers to spend DNA and create dinosaurs. And then you're going to go on a Jeep tour. Wait, that's it? Visit your dinosaurs to gain excitement and your buildings to activate special abilities. Only available in the park. I feel like there's an ending missing here. I feel like, is going on a Jeep tour the last thing you do on your turn? That is interesting. I've never played like a roll and write series, so I don't know how those are, but I think they're filler games. So I think this is probably like a skin of those roll and write games. So first initial thoughts, it looks cool. I love the colors of the artwork. I love the theme. Screen printed meeples, half and half about that. I prefer an actual miniature. If the first player marker is made out of the same material as Everdell's resin markers, I think that'd be really cool. And then of course we have MVM, Dice Tower, and Theo also did a video for them too. That's really cool. Definitely gonna check this out. And it looks like, actually a ton of other creators are also doing some live playthroughs. Ella, Sarah Shaw, Eric, Jeremy Howard. Oh wow, a ton of people actually are doing really, really cool playthroughs all the way through October 13th. So overall thoughts about the Kickstarter campaign page. I wish they did include a little bit more about your overall turn. I'm probably gonna have to go to the rulebook for this one, but I don't see how your turn kind of ended. There are a ton of questions that I have already unanswered. For example, do you have people that are visiting your park? What's the currency? How do you score victory points? What's your overall mission? Are you just building a park? It says you're activating special abilities only available in your park, but why are you activating special abilities? What are those abilities? How do you interact with other players? The only thing it says here is be careful or the dinosaurs will cause your death toll to rise, but how is death toll even calculated here? So there are a ton of questions that I definitely have to look back into for this particular campaign page, but overall, Dinosaur World, thematically, and in terms of artwork, it looks interesting. The next one I wanted to look at is Hogs of War, the miniatures game. So I clicked on this one right away because of the artwork, and it looks like Hogs of War is back. So it looks like this is a part 2 to maybe an original Hogs of War. Command your favorite faction from the original PS1 title, recruiting hogs, tanks, biplanes, and airships in your bid to conquer Australasia. So it looks like it was derived from a PlayStation game. Campaign book comes with 5 missions, 4 out-of-the-box play. You choose missions, set up the battlefield with the preset map, and away you go. Sandboxing a game of Hogs of War couldn't be easier. You can play solo or team up with your friends in horde mode where you must defend the hog base against an endless horde of hog enemies until relief arrives. I like how the blimp has a little pig nose right in front. That's pretty funny. So it looks like they have a ton of aircraft here, a lot of soldiers, all of them composed differently within different colors. Actually, green and blue look the same and gray and red also look the same. So it looks like there's 2 different compositions of minis. They have some modular terrain, 48 building tiles, lots of classes, tokens. We have some plain screens, and in the deluxe edition, looks like a ton of other different miniatures, a metal player coin, and most importantly, how do you play this game? Hogs of War contains several unique and streamlined mechanics that combine to make each game feel unique. For base building, each game of Hogs gives you the opportunity to construct a base that organically introduces your swill income, unit cap, unit production, and tech tree in a quick and easy to learn way. So you get to make refineries, some tank factories, some airship hangars, and more beautiful Tetris-esque building tiles in the orientation and position that you choose. There are thousands of combinations available, making every game of Hogs feel unique. So I like that. I like how the terrain is modular. You also have aerial vehicles and hidden movement. Aerial vehicles have a fantastic mechanic in Hogs that make them unlike the other units available to a Hog general. Using their console, move flight speed and direction indicators to change the vehicle's movement and turn order. A flight screen hides these choices from other players. Bluff and bamboozle your enemy. Okay, so that right there instantly sounds like a hook, because it sounds like you are directing specific actions that are behind a player screen, and that's going to affect what happens on the field that other players cannot see. So I like when games include that kind of suspenseful element like that. You get to drop bombs, you get to strafe the enemy and hogfight with the enemy pilots. There are attack dice, tons of upgrade cards. Okay, so initial impressions coming from someone who has never played the PS1 game. I've actually never heard of this game until now that it's on Kickstarter, but it looks like a fun, whimsical, family-oriented game, and I kind of like that. I'm mostly interested to see how you're interacting with other players here. The only type of play interaction that I got initially from the first impression of this campaign page so far is that you have the screen that is hiding whatever actions that you are planning to maneuver your pigs with, I guess, on your turn. That's going to affect whatever actions that are happening on the terrain, which in turn, I don't know how that's going to affect other players. Like, is it like a battleship type mechanism where when you pick one tile, it's going to bomb a specific tile on their terrain and their units will get attacked or destroyed, whatever? Does every player get their own map, or are you building on one big giant map? So I do like how everything is modular. The only thing that does worry me is it like a cookie cutter type strategy? Is it something where if you build a war factory in this orientation, it's always going to optimize your attacks for certain players? That's the only thing that worries me. Are they going to be too overpowered or overshadow everything else? I do really like and find the tower defense games interesting, like Dwarves Winter. I really did wish I backed those games, especially since that's one particular mechanism that I've never introduced to my gaming group just yet. Actually, I've never played that type of mechanism yet either. So it looks like Hogs of War does have a version of it. The minis don't look as detailed as I thought they would be, but overall it looks pretty cool. The minis don't look as detailed as I thought they would be from an initial impression, but I like how there are a ton of classes, and I like how there's a modular map. I like how there's a little bit of mystery with the whole screen printed or screen hidden actions. Moving on to the next one, which is Cactus Town. So looking at this game now made me realize that I'm very drawn to games that have a solid white or a solid black, and then just a nice simple artwork right in front. It just looks so clean when there's like a white background and then just some artwork right in the middle. So right away, the miniatures are very cartoony and they look very different from anything else that I've seen. So Cactus Town is an asymmetric action programming game for 2 to 4 players. It's a highly interactive game of fast-paced chase and escape. So I haven't played an action programming game since Lords of Xydet, if that's how you pronounce it correctly. So I haven't played one since then, but I liked it. I love action programming games. It's really fun to see if you can predict other people when they're playing. So it says here, sleepy little Cactus Town is going to see some action. You can wear the sheriff's badge. You can join a group of dangerous outlaws. You can seek ransom as a bounty hunter, or even use the power of seduction being an average can-can dancer. Each party has its own objectives and its own special actions, making this a perfect gateway game for asymmetric gameplay. Yes, +1 to asymmetric gameplay. I think we definitely need more of those in our hobby. Playing time is just 10 to 15 minutes per player. I kind of like that, like a little light game here. Oh, this is different here. Why will I love this game? It has a simple rule set because you only have 4 available actions each round, making the game accessible for family and kids. That's always a plus. Number 2, you have complex decision making with need for deduction. Experienced gamers will find depth and fun by racking their brains to optimize their actions. Yes, that sounds cool. Asymmetric gameplay, we have reverse action programming, which means you plan your actions, but then they get resolved in reverse order. I mean, I obviously don't know how the game plays yet, but that's something, especially with only 4 actions, I feel like that is something that we can definitely adapt to, but that's only from a preliminary thought, so we'll see. I am skeptical about that. You have some standees. Oh my god, standees, no! I think you all know how I feel about standees just now, so I'm gonna go ahead and skip through that and see what else is next. Yes, okay, finally. So, we do have a miniatures option. Of course, it's gonna be offered in the more expensive deluxe version. That makes sense. Well, but the components do look really cool though. You have the sheriff and deputies as one faction. You have the outlaws. You have the bounty hunters. Oops. And you also have the can-can dancer, which is a faction by herself. That's very interesting. Oh, okay, so this game for sure looks very interesting. I love the different factions. I love the cartoony feel of this. I like how lighthearted it can be. I do also like how it can be a gateway game and it does play in shorter time intervals. No stretch goals have been unlocked just yet. But what I've noticed recently too is that I haven't really played many expansions. I think a game really has to be super fun and engaging multiple times in a row for us to really dive into an expansion. So I'm going to go ahead and just avoid that. This game looks very promising. I feel like it's the most interesting one to me personally. And the price point definitely isn't bad and it's not too hefty. So definitely up there on my top 3 list for backing this month. So we'll see about that. Okay, so there are a couple other ones that I want to talk about today. The next one is Gatefall Lost in the Woods. So this one apparently is an expansion to another game which I haven't heard of just yet. Oh, right in LA, look at that. A new gate has opened into the North Woods, a location set in a world of ancient magic and dark history, where travelers and dwellers fight for survival. There should be a comma there, just FYI. So, what is Lost in the North Woods? Well, it seems like it is a art series expansion to Gatefall, features amazing characters and sculpts. So this expansion looks like they are adding 3 new fighters. So the first thing that they're starting off with is that these are huge figures. They seem to have a 100mm scale, which I have no idea what that is, but if it's the size of a soda can, that's pretty big. Okay, so right away, this game's different than the other ones because it's not just throwing out 10,000 minis, but rather it's giving a story behind each detailed 100mm mini. So for example, the first one is named Volve. In the Western Swamp, there's death and there's decay, but also life. Volve knows all these things, the call of the solitary beasts, the rot of necrosis and that which feeds upon it, the movement and dance of the eternal stars and pale moon. Volve can whisper to the dead, waking them from their slumber. He can tend to the living, knitting skin and bone together that was sundered in battle. So we have the healer class of this game here. Pretty cool. We have Zimorodok, who seems like the warlock. And lastly, the drowned warrior. This one's crazy, like his arm is a full-on octopus tentacle. Oh wait, do these actually come with miniatures or are they 3D printable files? Because that would be unfortunate if it's only 3D printable files, that would suck. Ah, here we go. What is Gatefall? Gatefall is a strategic miniatures game of tactics, deck building, and resource management. You draw cards, which equals how many things you can do that turn. You can move fighters, you can attack. You will earn coins as you attack. You use coins to upgrade fighters, very cool. When a fighter is defeated, the attacker gains a victory point and the fighter draws a 0 card. And then defeated fighters will respawn after 1 turn. The first player to gain 7 victory points wins. How we gain victory points? No clue. The game board is modular, allows you to play with 3 or more players. Oh, pretty cool. So it looks like it's a very simple map. There's only one center tile, and then there are 4 surrounding terrains. But you can also warp this to make it a triangular terrain as well. Okay, so this campaign page, it looks interesting, but there's just so many missing details that I wish I knew right off the bat. I wish I knew more about Gatefall. It looks like is it just minis, a couple of dice and a map? Like there are a lot of missing components here because it only focused on 3 specific miniatures. I mean, it does say it's a miniatures game, so maybe that's why. But I'm wondering, is it like a miniatures game in the sense of, are you measuring out the distances that they're traveling? Is it one of those type of miniatures games, or is it a board game? But there is a terrain and there are counters and cards here, so that's why I'm kind of confused. It seems simple. It looks like you're just moving and attacking. So is there more depth to this game? Lots of questions generated from a preliminary review, overview, impression. But it looks cool, it looks interesting. I love the story behind each one. I would love to know if their actual abilities will match the story that's driving each miniature as well. I want to know how you are gaining victory points. I also want to know if there are teams involved here, if you can play solo. But okay, it looks pretty cool, pretty interesting. Have no idea what to expect because there is a ton of missing information here. But with that said, I would love to find out more about this game. Okay, so 2 more games I want to talk about on Kickstarter before diving into the big ones. So next up is Monsters on Board with a week left of the campaign. Around 2,000 backers so far. The premise for Monsters on Board. First off, artwork is amazing, right in time for the Halloween theme. It's close to midnight, 1 week before the Blue Moon Monster Mixer at Spook Manor. So right away we have a full-on cartoony kids theme, which is totally fine with me. To throw a proper monster mash, you need only one thing, and that is spook juice. And you're gonna need an awful lot of it for these party animals. Spook juice is a powerful spirit distilled from human fear. Ooh, the main ingredient in every popular monster drink. The bad news is you're completely out of it. The good news is that the nearby town, Startleton, is a great place to scare some up. What a pun. The week-long Spider-Jack Festival attracts the most terrifying monster lords from across the world. They gather just outside of town to summon Spider-Jack, the most terrifying and devious of all monsters. So dust off your fear mobiles and get your scariest monsters on board. 1 to 4 players, plays in half an hour to 60 minutes, ages 12 and up. Right away, everything looks amazing. I love the color scheme here. It's very playful. I love the custom dice. The main board is pretty cool. It's like a little mansion. Again, I would kill for a 3D mansion. We have, oh, pretty cool here. You put dice in cars. I always love that. It reminds me of Dice Hospital. So tons of custom dice. We have ghost tokens. We have scoring markers. Standees for, 60 monster standees, but 36 miniature grunts. That's confusing. What's the difference between the standees here and the miniatures here? Oh, deluxe edition, of course. Of course, the deluxe edition. Yes, 100%. Monsters on Board is a highly thematic dice drafting and placement game. Okay, I'm cool with that. During the 6 rounds of play, you will take monster dice from 3D cardboard cards and place them on your player board to summon Spider-Jack. Satisfy your prophecy and appease the arch monsters. Higher value dice give you more juice while lower value dice give you more actions. Can you achieve a winning balance as you assemble your scariest monsters on board? Okay, so monster lords are on board and the fun begins. So you roll your dice. So I'm guessing it acts like a typical dice drafted game where you roll your dice and then you place them accordingly, gain resources. But what I'm wondering is, how does it distinguish itself from other games aside from the theme? Monster grunts are unleashed to scare folks of Startleton and search for the spook juice. So it looks like there's an event that happens every single round. On top of that, the lords join the Order of Spider-Jack to fulfill their prophecy. So there are a lot of conceptual things happening here. I kind of want to know realistically what's happening, but it looks like a typical dice management game. I don't really know yet how it distinguishes itself other than these specific events that are triggering every single turn, from feeding Spider-Jack to having the lords come to your table. But what that actually entails, I have no clue. How you score victory points, also no clue. Thematically, I know they say that whoever gets the most juice wins by the end of the game, but how do you exactly gain the most juice is my question. So there are a ton of questions that these campaigns have already brought up that I wish was addressed right away, because this is like their seller page, right? This is something that they should definitely include. I've talked about it a couple times now in the past where they just throw components onto you, and that's great and all, and I love seeing those things, but what should really be nailed down is how are we playing the game, because ultimately things can look nice, but if they don't play well, then that ruins the whole purpose of the game. So I really did wish that a majority of these campaigns would be including, boom, this is conceptually how you play, and right after that, this is in reality what you're doing on your turn. You know what? Let's just address the rulebook right now. Why not? I love the artwork in this game. I love the teals and oranges that are just everywhere here. It really matches the whole haunted house cartoony feel for this. So here you have 5 phases. You have the monster lords that arrive. Okay, so it looks like there are 6 types of grunts. You have Frankenstein, the werewolf, the witch, the mummy, the skeleton, and the octopus. How fittingly thematic that is. And then each one will correspond to the color dice that you roll. When a grunt advances, they're going to move to the next space that's indicated by certain arrows at the bottom of the current town that they're in. So overall, it looks pretty and it's very thematic, and I love the colors being used here, and the rulebook is very vibrant, but just from a quick, very quick glance, I'm still a little bit confused as to what exactly you're doing on your turn. I know that you're going through specific phases, but I feel like they should categorize like monsters are moving, you are rolling dice, and then monsters leave or something like that, because from a first glance I can't really get that. I'm definitely gonna have to dive into this much deeper if I were to back this game. But it looks like you do have a ton of actions to choose from. You have 8 different actions to choose from on your turn. Now I don't know much about Final Frontier games in terms of like their gameplay, so if you know anything about them, please let me know. I am very interested, a little extra interested in Monsters on Board than the other games, surprisingly. I did back Rise to Nobility and I have it here still unplayed. It's in on my shelf of shame. But Robin Hood looked good as well. I think overall, Final Frontier Games has really nice artwork. But if you know more about Monsters on Board, if you're backing it, please let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts. And the last one that I want to cover today on Kickstarter is the Rockoners. It seems like a futuristic mage power themed game. So that's why it looked really cool. I love the artwork right away. So here we have a decade ago, there is a mysterious burst in the sky that gave ordinary men and women extraordinary powers that are now called epics. Every epic turned out to be evil. What a plot twist. Now I'm interested. Today in the city, once known as Chicago, an all-powerful epic named Steelheart reigns supreme. No one fights back, no one but the Rockoners, and this is where you come in. You are a member of the Rockoners, a skilled group of normal humans who assassinate epics. Together, you work together in order to save the city from Steelheart. Okay, plays in 75 minutes, 1 to 6 players, pretty cool. It is a co-op game, which aren't typically the types of games that we play. We're very competitive in that sense, but it looks really good right off the bat. Looks like there are individual player boards and they all look very modular. The components right off the bat look super high quality. Rodney here did a tutorial, so I'm definitely gonna check that out later. So the game comes with 4 expansion modules. We have the new Rockoners, we have new equipment, we have new epics, which are the new heroes, and new bosses and cities, and these look really cool. Regalia seems like a water themed boss. Just looking at her miniature, you already know I'm gonna take some insane water photography with her, potentially some really cool water themed photography with Regalia. So just based on pictures alone, I might back this game. We have Limelight, who looks like he uses electricity. Very cool. So I already love the bosses. The maps look very cool. But what are we doing on our turn is what I'm interested in. Ooh, that price point all in for $200. That's a lot. The painted minis from the first glance of the Kickstarter page don't look all that detailed, especially the first one. He doesn't even have like a face. I don't know if that's like the picture itself, but he doesn't have a face. And it seems like there are only 3 tones of colors here: gray, light blue, and kind of like a vanilla white here. Daily reveals I'm not the biggest fan of. I like Kickstarter stretch goals for sure, because it feels like it's something that you're achieving each time. Did I miss completely what this game is all about? Okay, so clearly this game does not tell you what you're doing on your turn. So let's briefly gloss over this one. So all players will win or lose together. Okay, so it's not competitive at all, it seems like. During play, you'll take on the role of one of the Rockoners moving around the city. I thought they were epics, but oh yeah, epics I guess were the bad guys. You're moving around the city, saving lives, removing enforcement, purchasing equipment, and eliminating epics. When you've eliminated enough epics, you will have a chance to defeat Steelheart. If too many civilians die, then all the Rockoners will immediately lose. The victory condition is if you defeat Steelheart by reducing his health to 0. So I love the components, I love the artwork, I love how there's slots for every single thing. That is always a big winner for me. I'm typically not a fan of co-ops, but the fact that you are teaming up together to fight one specific boss I'm kind of for that. The question is, how is it different from each game? Or is it a legacy game? Or is it like a campaign driven game? Is my question. If you have a hero theme, I'm already sold for the most part. So let me know if you're back in this game. I'm definitely going to watch Rodney's video later on. But I need to definitely narrow down my Kickstarter backs for the month of September. So in summary though, this month, I'm not set on any one particular game. But to quickly summarize, we did talk about Seventh Citadel. I'm on the fence about that. But with 14,000 people, it has to be amazing, right? Only thing putting me off from that is that the fact that they're all cards. That's the only thing that's putting me off from Seventh Citadel. Dinosaur World looks cool. I've heard a lot of amazing things about it, but I just don't really know what I'm doing on my turn yet. I'm gonna have to dive into the rulebook just like I did for the other ones later on. But thematically, very, very cool. Artwork, amazing. Number 3, Hogs of War. Artwork, very cool, but I don't know how the replayability is for this one. I don't know how that transferred over to tabletop, so I'm gonna have to definitely read up about this. But I am interested in to see what everyone is thinking about Hogs of War before I back this one. Cactus Town actually is definitely up there for, I would say, top 3 for sure of what I'm gonna back this month. I'm probably gonna limit myself to back maybe 2 games, maybe 3 games, but probably 2 games this month. Cactus Town is definitely gonna be up there for one of them. I really love the whole cartoony feel of this. I really love the factions that you get to play as, and it looks like something that everyone would enjoy in my group. I would really love to introduce the whole programming aspect to my group as well when we can finally get together and play again. Gatefall, I really want to see what happened in part 1 and what everyone thought about, at least in the first initial game, since this is an expansion. From a preliminary view, I don't really know what you're doing on your turn as well. We just know very, very thick story behind each one, which is really cool. I don't mind that at all. And these miniatures are also huge and highly detailed. I also like how these characters are very distinct and unique from typical classes. For example, the Drowned Warrior, right? I've never seen something like that before. Monsters on board, I would say actually is pretty up there too. I would say between Monsters on Board and Cactus are kind of fighting for each other's spot here. I would probably choose one or the other since they're both along the whole cartoony feel. It looks fun, interesting. Rulebook was a little bit confusing at first, but again, I only looked at it for a quick minute or so. It's definitely one of the best components that I've seen all day today. Highly thematic, love the superhero theme. Don't know how I feel yet about it being a co-op game just yet, but that doesn't mean it's off the list yet either. I know I say that all the time, but I'm just so indecisive, so please let me know your thoughts. It's 100% going to influence what I get this month. And lastly, let's talk about Hero Quest. So apparently Hero Quest has its own campaign page, so it's their own exclusive crowdfunding campaign. It has already made $879,000, and there's still 45 days left with the campaign. We've all seen the video where the Bard was talking about Hero Quest, super excited about it, and I love that energy, and he just brings genuine happiness to you. You can rewatch that video over and over again and just see the excitement, genuine excitement from him playing that game. So because of his video alone, that's why I'm interested in Hero Quest. You have to let me know your thoughts on Hero Quest and whether or not you're backing, because at $150, that is a lot to shell out for an old classic game. Before even looking at the campaign page, I bet that majority of it is just going to be straight up 1,000 minis, 10,000 map terrains. Let's play the game, shall we? Oh, look at that. What'd you get? 71 highly detailed character and furniture minis, 4 bonus heroes, and 1 exclusive miniature only available during the campaign, as expected. So we have the Barbarian, the Dwarf, the Elf, and the Wizard. I know those are the 4 classes that you do play as. There are also 76 core miniatures. We have monsters like the Gargoyle. We have the Dread Sorcerer skeleton. Seems like a typical classical dungeon crawler. We have orcs, we have goblins, zombies, mummies, abominations. That does not look like a zombie. It looks like a fish. It's like a walking fish. Technically that is an abomination. Abomination is just kind of like an amalgamation of a bunch of different things, if we're trying to be technical here. We have doors. Lots of very, very cool furniture. I'm not gonna lie, it looks very cool. But again, I'm slowly transitioning to that point where, yes, it looks cool, but does it play well? So everything looks very, very cool. The landscaping, the alchemist's bench, the fireplace, all of that has amazing table presence. Get an expansion with the Return of the Witch Lord with the mythic tier. Oh my god, there's literally nothing about the campaign page about how you play this game. That is unreal. It really is just a list of components that you get in the game, but there is nothing that talks about how you play the game. Okay, so that's unfortunate. I thought there'd be a lot more sustenance to Hero Quest, but unfortunately the campaign page only lists a bunch of components. There is actually zero how to play, no rulebook that I've been able to gather so far. And from what I've seen, it seems like Hero Quest is just a reskin of the old. So I haven't read up on anyone else's thoughts just yet. I kind of wanted to keep it like a fresh review just specifically for this video, but I'm interested for sure. The components look great, but is it a dungeon crawler? Is it a co-op game? How do you play it? What do you do on your turn? Is it a reimagination to the old Hero Quest? Is it specifically is it a 100% reskin? But if you know more about Hero Quest than I do, please comment down below. I need to figure out what's going on here with Hero Quest, because it's very unfortunate to leave a campaign page without knowing how to play the game at all. I don't know if I missed it either, but I didn't see how many players it was for. Okay, so maybe Hasbro hasn't released any information about it yet either, because I did watch the video and it literally is just a rehash of the campaign page. So that is one major point of concern I am worried about. If it is a reskin of the older games, you know, games are very different. Board games are very different from before than what they are now, which is why Restoration Games definitely redid like Fireball Island and the Curse of Dark Tower, Return of the Dark Tower. So those aren't just reskins, but rather completely reimaginations and having those mechanics updated to what they are now. I think games back then were way less complicated than they are now. And maybe it was good for that era, but I don't know if it would fit well for our current time of board gaming. So that is a major point of concern for me before I back this game. There are obviously a ton of people, and it's definitely going to reach its goal probably by tomorrow. So right now we have $879,000 pledged, and the target is $1 million. We're going to reach that probably by tomorrow, if not by this weekend for sure. So there are definitely a ton of people that are backing this game, but I would love to know the reasons why. But more importantly, I want to know your reasons why, because we got to get down to the bottom of this and figure out, is Hero Quest something that you're going to back? Now with that, thank you for joining me on another Kickstarter highlights video. Next time I do this, I 100% will read through each and every single rulebook to make sure we get some more detailed analyses of each one. But I kind of like the whole free flow discussion of this. It's just kind of like a raw set of opinions and ideas that I formed on spot. So none of it is planned at all, and kind of like that. It's a bit fresh. With that, I hope you have a fun month backing Kickstarter board games, and I will see you all in Revamped episode 11.